Bonnie Tyler. How does someone with a voice that powerful, a spirit that unstoppable, just slip away? That's the question fans all over the world have been asking since the news broke. One day she's talking about getting back on stage. The next, she's gone. And in between those two moments lies a story that very few people actually know the full details of, until now. On the evening of July 8, 2026, the world lost one of its most unmistakable voices. Bonnie Tyler, the Welsh singer born Gaynor Hopkins, passed away in a hospital in Faro, Portugal. She was 75 years old. Her family confirmed the devastating news just hours later, closing the final chapter on a career that had spanned more than 50 years and touched millions of lives across generations. Let's rewind for a second, though, because the road to that final night wasn't quick, and it wasn't easy. Bonnie had been living part-time in the coastal city of Faro, in southern Portugal, for years. It had become something of a second home to her. Back in late April, she started experiencing severe abdominal pain. Naturally, she was rushed to the hospital. Doctors ran test after test, trying to pin down exactly what was wrong. What they found wasn't good. The situation was serious enough that it demanded immediate action to prevent things from spiraling into something even more dangerous. In early May, Bonnie underwent emergency surgery. The diagnosis: a perforated intestine, likely triggered by complications from a ruptured appendix that had allowed infection to spread through her abdomen. This wasn't a routine procedure. It was high risk, the kind of surgery where doctors and family alike understand the stakes are enormous. Afterward, to give her body the best possible shot at healing, she was placed into a medically induced coma. For weeks, she lay in intensive care, monitored around the clock by a team fighting to bring her back. Here's the thing about Bonnie Tyler, though. Her family kept things extremely quiet during this stretch. There were no dramatic updates, no press conferences, just the occasional brief statement letting fans know she was still receiving treatment. And fans did what fans do best. They held on, sent love, and waited. Then, by mid-June, something shifted. Word came through that Bonnie had woken up. She'd come out of the coma. For a moment, it felt like the tide was turning. But doctors were quick to temper the optimism. Her condition, they said, was still extremely serious. She remained in intensive care, still at real risk of complications. Progress was slower than anyone hoped, her body still wrestling with the aftermath of that surgery. Her family kept the media at arm's length, asking simply for privacy while they focused on her recovery. And you know what? A lot of people still believed she'd pull through. That's just who Bonnie was. A fighter. Someone whose entire public persona radiated resilience and warmth. Right before she was hospitalized, she'd even been talking about new music, new projects, more shows. So when the news came on July 8th that she'd passed, it didn't just hurt, it blindsided people. Her family said she died from complications tied to the illness she'd been battling for weeks. The cruelest part? It came not long after those first hopeful signs of recovery. The next morning, her family posted an official statement on her website and social media. It was short, but it said everything that needed saying. How heartbroken they were. How grateful to the medical staff who'd fought for her. How touched by the outpouring of love and prayers from fans across the globe. They asked for space to grieve privately, and said no funeral details had been decided yet. Within minutes, social media exploded with tributes. Total Eclipse of the Heart started trending everywhere. Clips of her legendary performances circulating non-stop. But amid all of it, one tribute in particular stood out. A message from someone who'd known her for decades. Sir Cliff Richard was one of the very first major artists to speak publicly about her death. The two of them had a friendship that stretched back years, built far away from the usual drama of the entertainment world. People who knew them both say the mutual respect between Cliff and Bonnie was obvious every time they were in the same room. Whether that was at charity events, music festivals, or just crossing paths on tour across Europe. Cliff, over the years, spoke fondly of her in interview after interview, always describing her as someone who brought light into a room just by being in it. Their bond wasn't just professional either. By several accounts, The two once vacationed together in the Bahamas with a group of mutual friends. No cameras, no promo tour, just old friends unwinding. Musically, they came together too, most notably on the duet Taking Control, a song where their voices blended in a way that somehow highlighted what made each of them unique, rather than blending them into sameness. In 2019, they even shared a stage in Portugal's Algarve region during the Alba Ferreira Day celebration. A rare, relaxed moment where fans actually got to see the two legends perform side by side. So it made sense that Cliff was one of the first to post a tribute. On July 9th, he shared a photo of the two of them on his official Facebook page, along with a heartfelt message. He called her, "another wonderful friend gone too soon," describing how she brought joy, not just to audiences through her music, but to everyone lucky enough to know her personally. He admitted he was shocked by the news, and signed off simply with "R.I.P. Bonnie." That post spread like wildfire. Tens of thousands of reactions within hours, with fans calling it one of the most genuine, personal tributes of the day. And Cliff wasn't alone. Tributes rolled in from all over. Catherine Zeta-Jones, connected to Bonnie's family through marriage, shared an old photo in remembrance. Bryan Adams and Rod Stewart both honored a fellow artist whose influence had reached corners of the globe most musicians only dream of. Even the Prince and Princess of Wales sent their condolences, recognizing her impact on British and international music. Prime Minister Keir Starmer called her a cultural icon beloved across generations. Radio stations spun her greatest hits on repeat. TV specials popped up overnight, celebrating a career that had shaped the soundtrack of decades. So who was Bonnie Tyler, really? Before all the fame, before the tributes. Let's go back to the beginning. Long before she was a household name, she was just a young woman from Wales, performing night after night in clubs around Swansea. That grind, those early years of singing in front of small, sometimes indifferent crowds, is what built her stage presence and helped her find her voice, quite literally. Her first real break came with Lost in France, a single that caught fire across parts of Europe and opened doors to television and chart success. Not long after, It's a Heartache turned her into an international name, climbing the charts in country after country and giving American audiences their first real taste of that unmistakable voice. And what a voice it was! Raspy, powerful, dripping with emotion. The kind you could pick out of a lineup instantly. Interestingly, that signature rasp actually came from vocal cord surgery she underwent early in her career, which permanently altered her voice into something nobody else in the industry sounded like. The real turning point, though, came when she teamed up with legendary songwriter and producer Jim Steinman. That partnership was pure magic. His dramatic, larger-than-life songwriting matched perfectly with her powerhouse vocals. The result? Total eclipse of the heart. The song shot straight to #1 in both the UK and the US, and estimates on its worldwide sales range anywhere from 6 million to a staggering 13 million copies. It helped push her album Faster Than the Speed of Night to the top of the UK charts too, and critics couldn't get enough. She followed that up with Holding Out for a Hero, a track that's basically impossible to escape if you've ever watched a sports montage, an action movie trailer, or, thanks to an entire new generation, Shrek 2. Over the course of her career, Bonnie released album after album and toured relentlessly, known for an energetic stage presence and a rare ability to swing between tender ballads and full-throttle rock anthems in the same set. By the numbers, it's honestly staggering. More than 50 million records sold worldwide, 2 Grammy nominations, 3 Brit Award nominations. She also holds a genuinely historic distinction, the first Welsh artist ever to hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US. That wasn't just a career milestone. It was a point of national pride back home in Wales. She kept evolving, too. Years later, she teamed up with French singer Karine Anton for a bilingual French-English duet in 2003, proving she still had the appetite to experiment and reach new audiences. The track went on to top the charts in France. And in 2022, all of it, the music, the milestones, the decades of work, was formally recognized when she was awarded an MBE, one of the UK's highest honours for contributions to the arts. But numbers and awards only tell part of the story. Her music still lives everywhere, streamed billions of times, played on repeat whenever a solar eclipse rolls around. You can probably guess why. Showing up in movies, commercials, and TV shows decade after decade. That raspy voice of hers continues to influence singers who weren't even born when Total Eclipse of the Heart first hit the charts. Now, away from the spotlight, Bonnie's personal life looked pretty different from what you'd expect from a global superstar. The most important person in her life was Robert Sullivan, a former Olympic judo athlete who later became a successful property developer. They met back when she was still an unknown, singing in local clubs, long before fame found her. She often described him as the first great love of her life, someone whose relationship with her grew naturally out of friendship. The two married in July 1973 and stayed married for more than 5 decades. Through every tour, every chart-topping single, every whirlwind of fame, Robert was the steady one, quietly supporting her, helping her keep some kind of balance between the demands of stardom and an actual life. Unlike so many celebrity marriages, theirs mostly stayed out of the tabloids. They preferred it that way, showing up together mainly for special occasions or charity work rather than red carpets. The couple never had children. Bonnie opened up once about suffering a miscarriage when she was close to 40, one of the rare, deeply personal details she ever shared publicly. After that, she and Robert made peace with not pursuing parenthood. But she always said she never felt like she was missing out on family. She had nieces, nephews, and a wide circle of relatives back in Wales who she adored. And those hometown gatherings were something she treasured for the rest of her life. Outside of touring, home for Bonnie was Albufeira, in Portugal's Algarve region, a place she'd called her second residence since the late 1980s. The mild weather and slower pace gave her an escape from the noise of the industry. Her villa there had 5 bedrooms and became something of a gathering spot for friends, family, and colleagues over the years. It's also, fittingly and sadly, the region where she spent her final months before passing at the hospital in Faro. People who actually knew Bonnie, not just knew of her, describe her the same way, over and over: warm, funny, endlessly upbeat. Despite decades of global fame, she never let that fame create distance between her and the people who loved her music. She'd chat with fans, show up for community events, stay grounded in a way a lot of stars from her era simply didn't. She was sharp with money too. Alongside Robert, she built an impressive portfolio of real estate and long-term investments that ran parallel to her music career. Reports before her death estimated her net worth at around $40 million, most of it coming from royalties, touring, performance deals, and property. Her Portuguese villa alone was reportedly worth more than $10 million. On top of that, she and Robert owned a string of properties across Berkshire and London. Some reports suggest more than 20 homes total. And in a twist you might not expect from a rock icon, they also owned a farm in New Zealand that was developed into a working dairy operation, along with interests in a quarry and a sizable horse stable. At the end of the day, though, none of that, the money, the awards, even the record sales, is really what people are going to remember. What they'll remember is a woman who clawed her way up from performing in small Welsh clubs to becoming a genuine global icon, who battled through vocal surgery and turned it into her greatest asset, who stayed married to the same man for over 50 years, and who kept singing, kept smiling, kept showing up for her fans right up until the very end. Bonnie Tyler leaves behind more than just chart-topping hits. She leaves behind a legacy of resilience, warmth, and a voice that genuinely could not be mistaken for anyone else's. Her family, friends, and fans across the world continue mourning her loss. But if there's one thing that's certain, it's that her music isn't going anywhere. Total Eclipse of the Heart will keep playing during eclipses, keep showing up in movies and karaoke nights, keep introducing new generations to a voice that defined an era. So if stories like this one, about the people who shaped music, film, and culture as we know it, mean something to you, stick around. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. There are more stories just like this one coming your way.